Welcome to TD Aquatics and another episode. Today we'll be looking at planting this tank that we dark start not long ago. So what we have today is a good pair of tweezers, some plants that I've got from a local friend, and a few super glue that we'll be needing for the moss. Let's get into it. So just get yourself a good amount of glossy stigma like so. And what we do is just slide it in the cracks that we see until it's hold. Just like so. Don't stress, it's not going to float, it will stay there and it will eventually get a good grip into the rocks. So just continue to do that. Find all the gaps that you want to plant, and you can simply try to squeeze that in without damaging the plants. And there you have it. Some of the plants, just continue to find a good place for it, and we will finally glue down the moss later on. Now remember, it's not a rules, but you should have the same species of plants on both sides of the tank. You can have more or less on one side, but ideally you should have the same type on both sides of the tank, just to balance it out and make it more natural. Okay, so after going around the tank with all the glossy stigma in various places, I guess that should be enough for now. We'll continue to the next plant, and as you can see, this is also the reason why I haven't used any super glue, just to ensure that I'll be happy with the layout before I glue it down. Again, with the hair grass, we just pick out a bunch and then we continue to find the gaps and just simply slide them in like so, just like that. So this is some of the moss I've got from my friend. It's called coral moss. It will need super glue just to hold everything down. So we'll continue to add that probably at the back to give it a bit more depth. I'll be using my hand this time. Add a bit of glue on there, and then we can continue to just put it at the back there, and then see how that look. So that's how it look with a bit of super glue, and just squeeze a bit between the cracked. It will get a bit dirty, some might stick on your hand, but this is coral moss. It's a bit difficult to put it on, but the result will be very satisfactory. So what I end up doing is I put in a bit of glue onto the rocks, and I just push that in, and I just use my hand just to go through. Be careful with the super glue because it will dry white if it touches water, and because the moss is wet. So if you're not careful, you may get some white residue after you glue on the moss. So just be careful, putting glue on first and then gently squeeze in the coral moss, or else it will leave a white residue. So as you can see, I continue to put in super glue on the rocks and add in the moss, and then I just gently squeeze them into place. Be careful not to touch any bit with the super glue, or else the white residue will stick on your moss and it will show. Now after going through and finally adding and satisfied with the placement of all the plants, we'll continue to add in the next batch, which is visiting moss. So this one here give it more bushy texture, so I'll add it at the front here. Again, we will be using some super glue, and then just add it in with the moss with your tweezer. In some instance, we can always just put it in between the cracks without a need of super glue. It's better that way. Like I said earlier, once we've filled up the water, then we can start moving around a bit. With the super glue, you can't really be adding more or remove. It will leave a residue, so therefore I think some of the moss is important just to use and squeeze them in the crack for now, and then just see how satisfied we are with the placement before we finally glue it down. We'll be adding some mosses at the front here. So I put in a bit of super glue. Just put it on like that. So after going through every gap with Ficidin, you can see that we have coral moss at the back, Ficidin at the front with some texture of glossy stigma. I'll be filling this up now and I'll be adding the peacock moss to make up the tree. Okay, so we finally filled up the tank with water. What that does is it makes it a lot easier to put in the mosses on the tree. What I did is I've got small batches of moss, just squeeze in the gap between all the branch. The trick here is just to get the smaller pieces, just keep squeezing it in until you get a nice shape, a nice rounded shape that mimic a tree. Doesn't matter if it's look a bit out of shape at the moment. I'll probably give it a week before I trim it down to make it looks even better. But there you have it. The tank look like is 90% planted. I'll probably add a bit more plant at the front area, especially here and maybe over here. I decided to leave the back mountain. As you can see, it looks like it's a bit further away, more depth. So I want our viewpoint to concentrate on this area here. That's where the plants area are gonna be. But if you look at this angle, everything is looking great. I'll put in the CO2 a bit later on, so probably gonna cover up most of the area that required. But overall, looking good. So let's look at this in detail. Everything we cleared up. I'll give it a trim. This is the problem that I said earlier. If you're not careful with the super glue, you can see a bit of a white stain there on the rocks. But eventually that will get covered up when the tank is more established. But other than that, all the moss is attaching well. I try to avoid touching it after I put in the super glue to avoid that white residue. The tree will need a bit of work. It will need to be trimmed down, but for now I'm happy with how it is. Probably clean up this area a little bit. I'm still not 100% happy with this area here, and I will try to add in a different variety of plants. The back is looking good, probably a bit more variety as well, but leaving that mountain range empty, I think that really works. Because if you're trying to follow this path, you can really see that it's given a good sense of depth. So I'm quite happy with that. I will try to maybe mix up the color a little bit. You see how we got lighter green here and darker green down there. I'll probably add in something a bit darker, or maybe add in a bit more color to this. But yes, hope you enjoy this episode on planting a tank after the dark start methods. See you next time on the next episode. Bye.